Malay archipelago. So along with this presentation, I also will include maybe if we have time to about the advent of Sunnah or Shia in Malaysia. So as an introduction, in our country in Malaysia, Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah is the only mazhab or section that is recognized by the government. So based on, according to Mahyuddin Haji Yahya in his book Shi'ah and Syiah dan pengaruhnya di alam Melayu, there is no unanimity among the scholars regarding to the advent of Islam in Malay archipelago. Some said Islam came to Nusantara on 7th century AD, and some said in 8th century AD, some said in 9th century AD, and even some of the scholars said in 13th century AD. Most of the Western researchers or scholars tend or prefer to say that Islam advent to Malay world in 13th of century. According to Ibn Battuta in his book Rihlah, he said that if we accept the Western researchers or scholars' tendency that Islam advent to Malay world in 13th of century, it means that we recognize that Islam has been brought to Malay archipelago by Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah section. Since Sunni Shafi'i has been recognized as official mazhab section in Aceh. However, before we can agree with this study, we cannot forget about the Islamic government in Perlat and also Samudra Pasai, which means if we recognize these two Islamic government, the Sunni Shafi'i based government in Aceh is considered as stage 2 or level 2 Islamic development in Malay archipelago. As we know that in Perlat and Samudra Pasai, their school of thought were based on Shia mazhab. According to Muhammad Shamsuddin and Azmul Fahmi in artikel Kemunculan Budaya Syiah di Alam Melayu, satu kajian awal, there are small group of researchers or scholars such as Hamka, Syed Muhammad Nakib Al-Atas, and Azumadi Azra that never recognized the existence of Shia influence in Malay world or Malay society. Even some of them rejected the existence of Shia Islamic government in Perlat. According to Professor Ali Hashmi, a local scholar from Aceh, Shia was the earliest section that arrived in Malay archipelago based on the formation of Shia Perlat government on 2025 Hijriah or 840 Masihi. The Shia influence started to, according to him also, he added, Perlat royalty was the first Islamic royalty in Southeast Asia that hold the power until the 20 and 92 Masihi. The Shia influence started to weaken on 13th of century when Maulana Sheikh Ismail came to Perlat. He has been sent by Sharif Makkah to represent Turki Osmaniyah government to spread Sunni teaching in Pasai. As reported in Hikayat Raja-Raja Pasai, Maulana Sheikh Ismail has successfully converted King of Pasai at that time, that is Malik As-Saleh, to Islam. The word converted, or in Hikayat Raja-Raja Pasai, as pengislaman or Islamization, have been interpreted by some of the Sunni scholars as Shi'ah Mazhab convert to Sunni Mazhab. However, some of them also interpret it as true Islamization, because they never recognize that Shia teaching is parallel with the Islamic teaching and is deviant from Islamic teaching. They form to use the word firqah najiyah, which means is deviant from the Islamic teaching. So based on this different interpretation, the editor of Hikayat Raja-Raja Pasai assumed that Pasai has been Islamized in the 13th of century AD. The interpretation has been accepted by Western researchers or Western scholars, and they conclude that Islam advanced to Malay world on 13th of century AD with the conversion of Malik al-Saleh. This opinion has influenced some of the local researchers, and they reject the existence of Perlak Shiah government and conclude Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah was the first to advance in Malay archipelago. So that's all from me actually.